As you know, we use this platform to share stories of resilience. And today I have a very special guest. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. I am so glad you're here because we have a very special episode for you today. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, I shared my story for the first time on my podcast. But today, I have a very special guest, a guest I talked about on my podcast, on my episode that I shared. And that's my son, Richard Allen. And I'm so pleased to have him here. I was driving, as I was driving today, coming here, I just was so excited. I'm excited for all episodes, but for this one, I'm just very emotional and very excited that we're able to do this together. So, you know, he's a pivotal part of my story. He is the reason I am who I am today because he gave me hope to do hard things, and he gave me that hope to build resilience and to do hard things. And with that, I want to introduce him. Richard Allen, welcome to the Sally Allen podcast.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I don't know. Should I shake your hand or
No.
like we've never met before?
No. But I also want to introduce another special person that came into our lives about a year ago. His name is Pedro Rosato, and he is the CEO of the, what was it, Pedro? You tell us.
Yes, I'm the CEO of the Last Rose Entertainment.
Last Rose Entertainment. I wrote it down, but I couldn't remember. And Richard also, he goes by Richie Rums, his artist name, and he has released 2 singles and an EP. I'm sure you guys know what an EP is because I don't know what an EP is. But I want to welcome them. Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm pretty excited for this episode and what we will be sharing today.
Yeah, definitely exciting.
Yeah? Are you excited too, Pedro?
Oh, I'm always excited. My excitement is always there.
Yeah. Awesome. So as you know, if you've read my book or if you've heard my story, you know Richard plays a pivotal role, and we have gone through a lot. And you know, no one can go through so much hardship and come out at the end unscathed. And this is what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about the hardships that he has been through. You've heard my side, some of the hardship he's been through, and how that residual effect took a toll on his mental health. And we will fast forward that to tell you, he will share his story about how that just impacted him one day while he was at work. Richard.
Yeah, so when I was working at GNC, I ended up meeting Pedro over here, and I didn't realize how much of a big part he was going to have in my life. And at the time, I didn't really have a lot of friends or a lot of people to talk to, and you know, people get busy in life, you know. And sometimes when people get busy or you don't have an outlet to go to, you know, you can hold things in, and then it builds up, and sometimes it can really just overflow. So it was nice to have him as a friend there, and he would ask me like, "Hey, how you doing?" and really like mean it, like, "Hey, how you doing? You all right? What's going on with you? How was your day?" And even after he had quit the job, he would still come in and help me, and I found that like really nice of him. And I was like, nah, he's just a nice guy, right? But who do you know just comes in and wants to be your friend and helps you with the job and things along those lines? And one day, ended up having a little breakdown, and he was there for me. And a lot of people didn't even know what was going on, but he did. I opened up to him. He was just a source of someone that I can go to and not just share my past, but share to him what my future was going to be. And so, you know, he helped me through some of the bad times that I had. So,
Pedro, regarding that breakdown, tell us your perspective of it, because you and I were there that night, and I will share my perspective. But tell us your perspective. What happened that night?
Oh man, yeah. Going back to the night, I just saw someone that needed help, just a listening ear. It was like a cry for help, but didn't know how to actually ask for help. So it's just, I seen myself in him. I've experienced that before as a kid. So going through that and seeing that firsthand in a third party view, I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
So it was a bit frightening and very concerning at the same time, but I knew I had to be there for him.
Yeah, thank you. So to unpack that a little bit, what happened there was what we found out later, there was residuals from our past and the things that happened to us and some stories Richard had made up. Is that correct, Richard? Some things you had made up?
Yeah, definitely what I would call in a state of psychosis because, in a sense, I didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. So
Yeah.
I just made assumptions about a lot of the things. I mean, some of the stuff was true, some of the stuff wasn't true. A lot of it wasn't true because I just made up things, didn't go
Right.
to the people to actually talk to them about the things, or we never had some sort of reconciliation.
Yeah.
So because I didn't get to talk to people, and well, not that I didn't, it's that I didn't.
Right,
And
right.
some people I had the chance to, some people I will never have the chance to ever again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because of that, that's kind of where just going to say it. It was basically a form of psychosis.
Right. So baggage from the past,
Hmm.
stuff that was happening, like, I mean, you had hurt from friends, you had people who took advantage of you.
Yeah.
There's some of that, and it was all the compound effect. But what we talked about before we got on the show, because we debriefed a little bit, was you didn't talk to anyone. So tell us
Right.
about that. Why didn't you talk to anyone? Why were you so inside your head and by yourself?
I think that, well, especially just stemming from my past as well, like I just didn't give anyone a call. Like if I was struggling, I would just pretend everything was okay. You would call, how you doing? Yeah, everything's cool, And so I think it was just like consistency of just not telling people.
Yeah.
Like my problems isn't everybody's problems, even if the person that I'm talking to is the problem or I think is the problem, right? Even though they might not be the problem.
Yeah.
So because I never went and actually spoke to people that were even in my life at the time I had a problem with, I made assumptions,
Right. Right.
just started making up stories in my head.
Yeah.
And like I said, once again, some of the stuff, if it was just talked about in the first place, it would be, good. But I didn't because I just held everything in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Pedro, you have experienced some of that also. Give us your perspective.
Um, what I always say, it's like playing the victim.
Mm.
So you put yourself in the victim's position instead of actually trying to get answers that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes fear plays a factor of asking questions. And that's how it was for Richard. He was scared to ask questions. He was scared that people would judge him for asking questions or even expressing himself. So at that time, I was reading my prayer Bible a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of things stuck out that helped me out, which I was like, you know what, maybe it'll help him. So I think I believe I gave it to him as well, and just let him know it's a safe place with family.
Yeah.
It's always a safe space, no matter what. You just
Yeah.
have to be vulnerable for a certain time period and express those things.
Yeah. Yeah. My perspective. Oh my gosh, that was one of. We've had hard times. You and I have experienced some really hard things in life.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, like, in this period of my life over the past 20 years, that was one of the toughest time in my life where I just had no idea what to do, right? I started to unpack this, that I got a call. Richard had a breakdown at work. Pedro, you gave me a call to say he's in the hospital, and then you lost signal for hours.
Yeah.
So the agony started then. Why is he in the hospital? Which hospital he's in? We couldn't figure it out. So as a mom, I'm just like, I'm gonna lose. I'm losing. I lost it. I lost it. So finally, we went to the fast forward to the hospital, and that was just as traumatizing as not knowing what happened to you, just seeing you in that state. Because talk to us about that and how you felt, when you got to the hospital. What happened?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a rough one.
And just give us a high level. You don't have to go in details.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I don't want to say I was outside of myself, but really I was kind of outside of myself. It was like I was almost unconscious. Like I don't know how to explain it. I had a panic attack that turned into a seizure, to the point where the doctor's like, well, he's kind of doing it to himself. And I could kind of read the room after I came out of the seizure, and everyone was just like, you're panicking. Like, what are you panicking so hard about? And that could also have been with like some of the stuff I was doing, because I'm gonna be honest, like I was drinking a lot of caffeine, and I was smoking a lot as well. So I definitely had like I don't want to say substance panic attack, whatever you want to call that, but at the end of the day, I definitely came to the point where, to be honest, I think we needed that because then we ended up coming out of it. But it's one of those things where if that didn't happen, we probably wouldn't be sitting here right now talking about the story.
Yeah.
You know, what really happened. And like I said, I was using substances to just like, all right, I'm going to keep going. All right, I'm not sleeping. All right, I'm not eating. And all these things, the 4 or 5 things just like turned into psychosis. It just turned into, now I'm going to blame everyone. And like Pedro said, play victim,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a lot. I have to be honest, as a mom, when I went to the hospital and I saw him, he was just saying some off the wall things. And I was so scared. Pedro, we were there, right? We met
Yes.
in the parking lot. I came out and I hyperventilated for the first time in my life. I've never hyperventilated. And then I call his dad, Chris, my husband, who was out of town, and I just bawled for a whole hour in the car. I just couldn't drive because I couldn't comprehend what was happening. And, you know, seeing him on the hospital bed took me back to that story that I had shared when he was 4 years old and he was thrown across the room. It took me back to that moment, and it was such a powerful moment in terms of hurt and fear. Like it just grabbed a hold of me that I was just panicking in that parking lot. And it was very scary. Pedro, what was your take when you went to see him?
Oh man, I saw him every day at the hospital. I was scared.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what I was looking at
Yeah.
because that wasn't the Richie that I was accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
And I also saw fear of abandonment in his eyes. And
Yeah.
he did actually make a comment. He was like, "Oh, it'll be all right if you leave like everybody else."
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that stuck with me. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going nowhere."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, you're kind of stuck with me now." So,
Yeah.
but it was definitely something scary to see, because if we weren't there, like, can you imagine how much worse it would have been? And I know how it feels to be abandoned, so I wasn't going to do that to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was scary.
Yeah. What we experience, for any parent listening to this, what we experienced with Richard was he had, it's not unrealistic fears, but he had fears that were true to him and what he was going through, right?
Yes.
He was saying things like, I wanted them to keep him, because eventually he ended up in a mental health facility. And he had this fear that I wanted them, me and his dad wanted them to keep him there. Like he just, this fear, I don't know if unrealistic is the word, but it was just an unnatural fear that we want to keep him there, that we would abandon him, that we didn't care about him. So if you're watching this, just know, like if your child's going through something like that, I don't know where those fears are coming from, but when they're going through mental health struggle, it grabs a hold of them, and it's really powerful. And I have to tell you, and Richard will share this part, when they put him on meds, it magnified those fears and what he was going through. Richard, share that with us.
Yeah, so they had me on a drug called Depakote and a few other ones I can't remember what they were, but they were supposed to help me. But they really made me even feel more out of body, because I had said at the time, a lot of caffeine, I was under stress at work, and I was smoking a lot too. And then when I was in the ward, it was like, I still feel like I'm on this stuff. And second day in, I was in my room by myself, and it was lights out, and I had a seizure in there, and no one even knew, you know? And it was one of those things where it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna die in here, or like they just want me here. Like, look, it's just more drugs, you know? And it was definitely irrational, but even just coming off of, you know, regular substances and then going to these pharmaceutical ones, it was like, yeah, so this is the option, you know? And I really thought I was gonna be in there for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely it was scary, you know?
Yeah, and what was even scarier, the one thing we found out, that if your child is not in his right mind, maybe that's not the right term, so forgive me, but if they're not cognizant enough to tell you were an adult, you're
Yeah.
18, if he well, 30 something.
No, I'm 29. Hold up, wait a minute. Don't be adding years on to me.
But he's single. He doesn't have like a wife or a girlfriend, but he wasn't cognizant enough to put my name down as someone who could visit him. I couldn't find him because they won't tell me where they took him, and that was scary too.
Yeah.
So I was running around town trying to find him at different facilities because he didn't put my name down. So, you know, if you have an adult child, one thing I'll say is get a power of attorney, because if something happens to them and they can't put your name down to go see them or talk to them, or as a parent or whoever, you can't see them. That was scary. Right, Pedro? I'm glad he was cognizant enough to put your name down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the scary part. Power of attorney for your adult kids, just in case. You never know. So okay. So we fast forward. You felt terrible with the pharmaceuticals they put you on.
Yeah.
Got out of there.
Mm-hmm. Lost a lot of weight.
Lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And no, we spend hours upon hours trying to talk to you. Pedro, share a little bit about that, because you were tearing your hair out, us trying to reason.
Well, I remember visiting him when he was at the facility, and he kept telling me, you know, the same thing that you mentioned. Oh, you know, my parents want me here. They don't want me home. I'm like, okay. I was like, that's not true. I actually just spoke to your mom before coming here. We're trying to help you, but first you have to help yourself. You have to take this time to self-reflect while we do things out here to get you home. And yeah, it was frustrating at times, because even at moments he wouldn't listen to me, and it was like, all right, I need you to sit down, just listen. I don't want you to speak.
Yeah.
I don't want you to ask any questions. I want you to just comprehend. So we skipped the listening part. I want you to actually comprehend what's being said. And I just let them know, if your parents didn't love you, they wouldn't be helping you. They wouldn't try to find ways to get you out of there. They wouldn't be providing a roof over your head to keep you safe. And yeah, it was very frustrating at times.
Yeah, yeah. I think the word just came to me that I was saying unrealistic, but the word is paranoia.
Yes.
His came with a lot of paranoia, right?
Yeah.
It came with
Yes,
a lot of paranoia. So finally he got out. We took him to a professional, right? We went to a professional and got some help there. We highly recommend going to see someone and talking to them, but see the right person.
Gotta see the right person.
You got to see the right person, because you want to talk about that experience with you and me?
Well, to give that person a fair shot, they did say that they had just basically had graduated from therapy, or they just had gotten their certificate. So you definitely want to go with someone that has a lot of experience, and even self-experiences as well.
Right.
But no, that was, if anything, that was kind of traumatizing too.
It was very traumatizing.
Yeah.
Because to give context to what we're talking about, Richard went to therapy by himself. I went to therapy also. I need to know how to deal with this. Then we went together.
Yeah.
And the person we went to see together didn't have the experience. So instead of bringing us together, we ended up almost killing each other at the end of the session. And we were really good going in it. And at the end of it, we're like, what just happened? And we decided we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah, the last session blew up, and then we came together and was like, you know what? We can move past all this and deal with it in our own way that we know how to deal with it. And to be honest, when I finally came out of what I was going through, I was more open-minded to do it, and you were already open-minded. So we ended up doing it together, getting past a lot of things. And I think that's the other thing, too, is if you're dealing with another person or people, you have to do what we had originally said. Don't make stuff up. Go confront it. Not confront it, but face it, right? Mm-hmm. And talk about it and be civil about it. Because we lost all civility.
that was very scary. That one meeting, we're on Zoom. He's downstairs, I'm upstairs, and all of a sudden we find ourselves, and we were really good going in. We're like, we're going to the session. We're excited. Yeah. We found ourselves screaming at each other
through the laptop. Yeah.
Yeah. So Pedro, so we talked a lot to Richard, but when he finally started to listen, I want you to talk a little bit about that and the impact it had and what you noticed, because you were closer to him. He just gravitated towards you.
Yeah, man, I think it was starting with the walk at the Duck Creek Trail, where I finally got a chance to have him open up. I just taught him that there's more than a way to find a source of outlet. So whether it was just walking in the park, making music, or even just taking a moment to yourself before addressing anything. Once he started to follow some of those steps, like he would call me before he would address you.
Yeah, yeah.
Or he would, hey, bro, can I come by? Let's go for a walk. And we would do that. And then he would be like, hey, I spoke to mom tonight. Or I spoke to dad. And it went well. So it was a sense of relief. And it was like, okay, good. And then he started to find his own outlets as far as doing things like reading his prayer Bibles or playing a game to, relax his mind. And it was a happy moment for me.
Yeah.
Because it was just a lot of like, no, Richard, you're wrong. No,
Yeah.
Richard, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wouldn't listen. I couldn't see it because I was still like phasing. I was still going from, who I was to who I'm trying to be, the best version of me. So it definitely took a lot of time. But yeah, he was always there for me.
Yeah. But I think it was the paranoia was so bad, and the delusions also. You were making things up that weren't there. You weren't. It was your truth.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, some of the stuff.
It was your truth.
To say one conversation, like when I finally got out of it, I think I called Pedro like 2 a.m. Like, I know you know where I'm going with this.
Yes.
It's like, man, I'm so embarrassed.
And I was like, bro, why didn't you tell me that I was just like, you never were like, bro, you're out of your mind. Like, he never said none of that. He would just be like, okay.
Well, we talked about it, but we decided not to tell you in the state you were in.
Yeah. So he was,
yeah.
One of the things that he said was when someone was going through something like you're going through, you don't talk to him and tell him like you're crazy.
That's right.
It makes
That's
it
right.
worse. And so I called him 2 a.m. I'm like, bro, why didn't you just tell me I was being crazy? And he was like, bro, I couldn't tell you were being crazy.
Yeah.
We knew, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't want to,
Yeah.
entice you and nothing like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when I finally came to, that was about not too long ago, and it was like, dang, you guys didn't tell me, so I felt the love because after it all, it was like, wow, you guys were still, pouring out love to me, and to me, that's crazy. Like,
Right.
but man, that love is powerful, and the community is powerful.
Yeah. A little more context on what we're talking about. Richard had some delusions about some things and some people in his life. Like, I won't share in details, but I'd say he thought for a minute he almost proposed to a girl and they were getting married.
Yeah, there was a point where I how do I put it? I was trying to go back in my mind, and I was trying to find the happiest that I was, or a happy moment that I had with somebody. And I thought it was with this girl, and it was with that girl. It was a happy moment. I think my brain was trying to pull, like, man, we got to get happy. Like, we've been in a state of psychosis. We find something. And when we finally came back to, it was like, oh wait, this isn't real.
Right.
Like this is fake.
Yeah.
Right. But not to go into more detail, but
Right.
like her and I, we don't talk anymore, which is okay. But it's one of those things where it's like, wow, that was a sour situation.
Yeah. And again, to go into a little bit more context, what we're trying to say here, if you have someone who's struggling with mental health and they have these delusions, it doesn't serve them. We find, this is our opinion, Pedro and I found,
Yes.
and Richard's dad, we had found it didn't serve Richard to tell him that it isn't so and it's not happening. We just allowed him to just go ahead and think what he thought, and we supported him. Right at the time, we supported him, but we made sure he felt safe and he felt loved, he felt heard, and that's all we could have done at the time.
Yeah.
And that really helped him also.
Yeah. And I would say one thing is if, not if or when, I was having these delusions. You don't want people to feed into it. Like,
Right.
Like, I think that was part of the problem as well. I was getting fed into it, and I was getting, I don't want to say played, but I think that, some people like the attention or whatever it may be from it. And then in the end process, they don't really know what's going on and you get played out. So don't feed into someone's delusion too. And you guys never did that. You're like, okay, all right. You don't want to be like, yeah, that's what it is to make them feel good, because that part can really ruin somebody as well. That's another part of recovery you have to go through.
Right. I understand that that other person was feeding into your delusion, and yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't feed into people's
Good.
delusions.
So I want to go back to one of you segue into community, because we've talked about the mental health. We can talk about it all day. There were so many stories.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that we found we could help Richard was, one, regardless of what he went through, we just formed a strong circle around him, and we just kept him safe. Like, he knew he was safe, he was covered. Naturally, we went to get professionals to help, and it works for some people, and for us, we didn't have the right people, so it didn't work, and we did what we could. Being a coach, also a mindset coach, helped me to deal with it, and Pedro, having gone through this,
Yes.
right, help him to deal with it. And we had all, patience. At times we lost our minds, but forming community is so important, right? You want to talk a little bit about how you experience in community.
Yeah, I mean, it's how can I say this? Finding the right people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't take 5 people. Sometimes it takes a village of 2.
Yes.
And, you can find your home outside of your home.
Yeah.
So, I did that with Richard. As far as his outlet, we used music.
Right.
And I brought him around producers and people that are like, oh, man, like, I've experienced something like this before. I felt like this.
Yeah.
So it made him feel like he wasn't the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And then it builds that comfort to where it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that was a bit crazy at one point.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and also just letting him know, like, you can ask your mom for help. You can talk to your mom.
Right.
You can ask your dad. They're in your corner. So sometimes people need a outside source to let them know that their parents or a friend or a brother or a grandparent is in their corner, and that it's okay to ask. So, but that person has to find the right person they're comfortable with. It can't be force-fed.
Right.
So that's what I explained to him. Like, he's like, oh, man, I really want to talk to mom right now. I'm like, just wait for the moment.
Well, Richard, experience in community, talk to us a little bit about that, and what was your experience through that?
Well, for one, it feels good to not just be talking to myself, because you could develop personality disorders. You could develop all sorts of things that aren't good for you or healthy for your mind or anything like that. So when you're talking to an outside source that's not just yourself, and you have, family, friends, and family that actually care about you, but it's one of those things where you have to open up your mind to it. Just because you go through a battle with somebody one night doesn't mean the next day you can't talk. Right? Just because you might have an argument with somebody doesn't mean you can't come back and have a reconciliation, right? And I see a lot of people nowadays, even friends I used to have, they don't want a reconciliation, or family, they don't want a reconciliation. Community can be the people that you used to have, because people grow.
Yeah.
People can grow. It's not going to be all the time, but so people make changes. People will say, man, you changed. I don't like that, but I changed for the better. You're changing for the worst. And so to see people in my community where it was just like, man, it just took a step of reconciliation or a step of just opening up. It is literally one step away from having a community. Just say something. You never know who would have something in common with you. You never know who you can reconcile with.
Yeah.
And those things are important. And I would say, don't have pride. If you have so much pride, I think that was part of the problem too. I had a lot of pride, and that really set me back a lot. So,
Okay, so what I heard Pedro say to kind of close the loop on this was, you took him to something he loved, which is his music. His music has always been a getaway for him, and you took him outside, like you guys went hiking, like actually out in nature.
3 hours, no less.
3 hours. And you got lost. You guys got lost.
Yes,
it
we
was
got
supposed
lost.
to be 1 hour. The sun went down. We're on the GPS. It doesn't work. We out here like
It was
explorers,
Right.
like that landmark,
Yes.
that tree. Didn't we see that already?
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
well, at least we learned to go earlier.
Yeah, we learned to go.
Right, outside. It's good for your mental health. And
Yeah.
and then community. And I want to reiterate, these are things that work for us. I don't know what would work for you. We're not experts here. We're just sharing our experience and stories. So if you're listening to something that doesn't work for everyone, absolutely, it doesn't work for everyone. This worked for us, and then we're
Community.
sharing our story. Secondly, so community, sharing your story. Secondly, I want to talk about, before we get into what helped you next, I want to talk about when you finally, one of the things I noticed is that when you finally went from the anger, paranoia state, you went all the way at the other end of the spectrum to a state of severe anxiety.
Yeah. So I think that anxiety stemmed from fear because I was changing into a new form, into a new person. And when you're taking those steps, I personally went through fear because it was new to me. It was new not to be angry. It was new to, I experienced joy, like
Right.
actual joy because I had such consistency of just sadness and not fear from anxiety, but like fear like I'd be abandoned or anything along those lines. So yeah, when you're going into a quote unquote new form of, mental, spiritual, and physical, because I lost weight too, I think the combination of those things, just being a new person, looking different, feeling different, thinking different, it definitely put me into a state of anxiety. Like, wow, life can be good consistently. And when I was living by myself at some points, it was like, oh, I had a great day. Then the next day would be bad. And so I wouldn't get my hopes up. I wouldn't get my hopes up for consistent, joyful days. Like
Right.
that wasn't possible for me,
Yeah.
and now it's possible. And it's nice to have that peace, consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to Pedro about what you noticed because Richard's outgoing. He's happy, right? He has these beautiful dimples when he smiles. I mean, but and he makes really good music. So two things from your perspective I want you to talk about. One, you noticed that flip. He went into anxiety, but two, how did he use some of what he's been through to make his music?
Oh man, the term that I used with him was he was comfortable with himself.
Mm.
So what I learned and what I've experienced myself is when you're comfortable, you don't tend to progress and grow as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
So we started with the love life with his music and expressing that. And that way he won't carry it into tomorrow because he was bringing things in from 2 days ago into the day that he's in at that present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we were learning how to let go. So like whatever happened yesterday, that's yesterday. You have a clean slate today.
Mm-hmm.
So don't wake up with anxiety. Don't be like, oh, great, today's going to be a bad day. So when we started doing the music, each day started to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Richie started to show those dimples. He started to be happy. So,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to address things. And I explained that to him. And even with me, he addresses things with me directly. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Okay.
this is a new
Yeah.
Richard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was definitely something great to see throughout the time.
Yeah.
But music really was his best outlet.
Right.
He wrote tracks that are coming out, about his personal life, his personal feelings that's not involving his love life, like involving his anxiety, his depression, and everything that he fought through. And I love it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It brings joy to him, and it shows as each day progresses.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that he is here and he know this is going to go public because I remember when he couldn't go to open mic. Right, open mic night because he was so nervous and he had so much anxiety. So and then there are times, so he went from being angry, my perspective, delusional, paranoia, to severe anxiety where he just would shake. He would come in my office like, "Mom, can I talk to you?" And just shaking like he went from one state to the other. The one thing he refused to do, because he had such a bad experience with it, he refused to go on any pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Now, I know some people need it. Again, we're sharing our experience. Some people need it. But for him, he took one of it and he's like, Mom, I can't take it because I can't, it just stunts me like to do anything, my creativity. It just killed his creativity, so he refused to take it. So we decided to go a different route.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Talk to us about what we did, how you felt.
So there was a day. So the story of the day that I actually started taking Edge and the what was the other
the
one?
Mentobiotics.
The Menta, yeah.
The happy juice.
The happy juice. Yes.
Yeah,
She
happy
likes
juice.
calling it happy juice.
Happy juice.
We'll call it happy juice. I call
Yes.
it by what it is. Menta and the Edge. But anyways, that morning, I was having a really bad anxiety attack the night before, and I got home. I ended up going to sleep, and this is what the crazy part is. I slept for like 12 hours, and I woke up, and how do you sleep and have quote unquote good sleep, wake up with the shakes. It's just crazy. Like, you would think your body would actually go into a form of rest and then wake up energized. No, I woke up, heart palpitations. I'm like, I don't feel good. I don't know what a heart attack feels like, but this might be it. So I was shaking, so I had to come up and see you. And you were like, you have to take this happy juice stuff that I've been taking. And I was like, whatever is going to help. I mean, it was that bad. I'm like, I don't care if it was ice water. It didn't matter what it was, just something help me, you know?
Yeah.
I was in a panic, like, help me, you know?
Yeah.
And we went downstairs. You started brewing up, you know? Started brewing up this mix, you know, dragon eyes and goblin ears. No, I'm playing. But yeah, you made the mix and drank it. Within maybe 8 to 10 minutes, the transition was so smooth. It was like I was shaking, and then it was just I slammed it, and then next thing you know, it was like, oh, the physical pain's not there anymore, right? And I know we talk about like it's with the gut and the gut brain health, and definitely got me on a better eating regimen. But that right there, like that first sip, it was like, okay. And then to finish it and to feel good after, like I said, like let's call it 10 minutes, it definitely helped a lot. And I took it for like a month consistently, and then now I take it maybe every other day when I have quote unquote anxiety attacks, because sometimes I'm like, I don't really know what's going on, right? And I'm still trying to figure it out. So, you know, when I took it, it definitely made me feel good. So it's not a cure, but it's something that where I had anxiety / panic attack, and I took it, and then I felt good after, you know?
To explain it, it reduces your stress and your anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what happy juice does. It reduces
I mean,
stress
that's
and
why it's
anxiety.
called happy juice. So
And we are not talking about wine and alcohol.
No,
We're actually
no.
talking about
Prosecco, no.
all
Yeah.
natural, right?
Yeah.
All natural. For an all natural formula called Happy Juice. It consists of the edge, the mentobiotics, and the energy. It's 3 products in one. When you mix it together, it helps with your mood, it helps with motivation, it helps with energy, and it really calms you down. And for some people, it takes about a week, but for Richard, it took 10 minutes.
Yeah, minutes.
It took 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, Richard. Now, where we're at now, Pedro, what are you noticing?
I don't get phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's a plus. That's a
That's
plus.
a plus.
He gets to get sleep.
I wish.
Yeah.
No, he takes accountability. I think that's the biggest thing for me is him
Yes.
taking accountability and
Yes.
being like, okay, that was my fault.
Yeah.
He's self-aware about himself now.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 2 like biggest improvements that I've noticed consistently, not just outside of music, but with his personal life and his decisions as well.
Right.
So yeah, the main thing is definitely accountability, and I enjoy it
Yeah.
because it shows a brighter side that we always knew was there. And I mean, I'm proud of him. I tell him that a lot.
Yes, I am too. I am too. What about you, Richard? How are you feeling now?
Nowadays it's like trying to get used to, like I said before, like the consistency of, oh, it's another good day. Oh, another good day. Oh, wow, another good day. You're
Yeah.
telling me this is possible? Like, you're telling me
Yeah.
I'm not gonna wake up with anxiety?
Yeah.
Because that was a fear. Like, I waited till it got so bad to the point, right? And now I'm where I'm at, where I could talk to people. I feel really good because it goes back to the community. It goes back to treating your body right. It goes back to the self accountability. It's a combination for this situation, right? And like you keep saying, not everything that we say is gonna work for everybody, but if you take the steps, I mean, what's the hurt in that?
Right.
You know, and that's what it took, was me opening up and taking the steps.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't willing to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Are you guys okay to talk about that or not?
Yeah, I mean,
Is it a secret? I don't know. Sign an NDA?
no, it's not a secret. We're working on a couple of TV shows and a Netflix documentary. Not about his life, but he'll have music presented on the Netflix documentary. And performances. I mean, just traveling and performing and writing more content, working with more celebrity artists that we've already, worked with prior and ones that we haven't. But right now, I think it's just getting the TV shows done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you two for sharing today. And Any parting words, Richard? Anything you want to leave with our audience?
Well, for one, I want to thank you both because you guys definitely stuck by me through everything thick
And
and
Dad,
thin.
he's gonna listen
And
to it. Don't
Dad
leave
too.
him out.
Dad too. No, I can't leave him out. Dad too. You know, and everyone just played. I don't want to say played their part. They did their part. You know, everyone just did their part, and there's nothing that I could give back. There's nothing I could really say because now I know how hard it. Now that I've come out of that, I know how hard it is for you guys, and you know, to be there for me, and you know, I added stress on your guys' life, and you know, I'll take this moment to say publicly, thank you guys for just being there and being the part, you know, and just guiding me through, you know, all the prayers and the talks, and now that I'm here right now, this moment right here is just like this moment wouldn't have happened a couple months ago, you know. So I'm glad to have you guys in my life, and I love you all, and thank you for just being there.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh,
we
we
love
love
you
you
too.
too.
Pedro, what's your takeaway?
Just call and ask someone for help.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have a friend, I'll be your friend.
You better not put that out there. You never know.
No,
You
yeah.
want to give your phone number out, Pedro?
You have my social media. I would gladly be a listening ear for anyone. You know,
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you never know what someone is dealing with behind doors, and some people like me are built to listen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks everyone. As you know, I always say it's never too late to start living resiliently. And what I got out of all this is that regardless of what you're going through, I'm going to just reiterate some of the things these guys left as their takeaway. Talk to somebody when you're going through. The problem that Richard went through is he didn't talk to anyone. He bottled it up for years. Everything he was going through, every time you ask him, how are you? He was fine. So find someone to talk to. And in the healing journey, it's so important to have community and, you know, to have continuous support. It's not just I'm going to be there for you for this one time and then we're gone. That continuous support is so important. Like for mental health, community is so important. And find things to do. Find things to do that you know that you love to do. Like for Richard, it was music. It was going out hiking. It was
I was just playing video games.
just playing video games. Whatever works for you. For each of us, it's different. So whatever works for you. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching. And until next time.